Hello everyone, welcome to CFE and thanks for joining us for our 4th anniversary edition. I'm Sue Shardlow of CFE.dev and I am your host. Today we're here to find out how to work with documents on the web with Raymond Camden. Before I introduce Raymond, I want to let you know that today's event has been brought to you with the support of Stratic. Try them for free at app.stratic.com/signup and Launch Darkly, Netlify, and Covery. And don't forget to check out our video library. All of our previous talks are there. There are more than 90 videos, including our July meetups and getting traction with GitHub Actions from June. Try and say that fast. And you can catch a recording of today's talk at the same URL you're at now, as always. Our Discord server's ready for you, so if you want to continue the conversation outside the meetups, join us there. I will drop the link in the chat. And you can also find us on Patreon. For those of you that don't know, Patreon is a website that allows you to support your favorite creators. We still do our free meetups and they'll always be free, but as you know, we also run paid events. So this is a way for you to support us and get a discount on our workshops and conferences, and your company can support us too. Check that out if you'd like to help us out. So just for anyone new joining us today, and a reminder for those of you who have attended our events before, this session's being recorded, like I said, so you'll be able to catch the recording at the same URL you're at now, straight after we've finished, so in about an hour's time. Please ask your questions in the chat, and Raymond will have a look at those and answer some during and some at the end. And please send your feedback to brian@cfe.dev. So now on to today's speaker. Raymond Camden spoke at our very first CFE meetup 4 years ago this week, and now he's back. Raymond is a senior developer evangelist for Adobe. He works with the document services APIs, and he has written multiple books on web development. He's been blogging and presenting for almost 20 years and has actually written more than 6,000 posts so far. You can read them on his website, raymondcamden.com. He is a cat lover. Usually he's told me that his cat is there and won't stop biting his legs. So we'll see how that goes. And he lives in Louisiana. Raymond, welcome back to CFE.dev.
Thank you for having me. And she literally, like while you're talking about the cat, she bit me. So we're like, I could just take her off my lap, but you can't do that to a cat.
No.
So I'm going to try my best to work around her.
Yes.
Thank y'all for having me. You could have picked so many more interesting people for your 4-year anniversary. I will try to make this topic as exciting as possible. And one of the ways that I have done that is by giving you terribly exciting slides. So we start off with working with documents on the web, also known as doing cool stuff with documents. In case you were curious, you can do animated GIFs in a background, and you totally should on like all of your websites. Suze has already talked about who I am. I won't go over that again. I will say, if you follow me on Twitter, which you should totally do because I only tweet super serious, business critical, important stuff. My DMs are open. So if you have any questions about what I'm showing today, or any questions about web development, about adoption, about Star Wars, about cats, definitely reach out. A lot of those 6,000 posts that she mentioned, that came from people just randomly asking me questions. So I enjoy digging into and making things work with code. So I absolutely don't mind your question. If I'm busy, I'll tell you and I'll get back to you when I can. But absolutely reach out if you have questions. So when I talk about document services, at least from my perspective, it really is going to come down to kind of 2 main buckets, and that is viewing PDFs on the web in your website. And for us, this will be a free service. I like to be upfront and honest and direct about when things cost money. The other bucket is actually working with PDFs and other documents. So any type of operation you can think of in terms of creating or breaking apart or merging or doing whatever with PDFs, That's going to be the other bucket that I'll be talking about today. That part is not free. I'll talk a bit more about costs and stuff like that later. But again, I like to be upfront and honest about what you can play with and what is going to cost some money, at least later on down the road. So let's start off by talking about Adobe PDF Embed. Now, let me quickly say that we have official marketing branded names for everything. Obviously, we're Adobe. I'm really bad at branding, so I sometimes use the imprecise marketing term. Hopefully, any of my coworkers watching this will forgive me, but I did try my best. Just so you know, I tried very hard to be on brand as much as possible. So yes, Adobe PDF Embed, that's the official name. I probably won't say Adobe too many more times after this. What this is a JavaScript solution for viewing PDFs on the web. As you know, browsers can definitely render PDFs, but it is normally a full pane type experience. So if you link to a PDF from your website, the user will absolutely be able to view it in the PDF in their browser, but it's going to take over the entire screen. So none of your navigation, none of that is going to be there to get the user back or help direct them elsewhere. You also don't get any kind of idea about how people are actually looking at those PDFs. So our PDF Embed will give you much more control over that experience. We have different types of ways to view PDFs. Not every PDF is the same, so we provide different ways to work with them. And also we have a lot of hooks into the actual document to allow you to kind of modify things and kind of really customize the experience for your site. And again, this is free. All right, so as an example, I am using Reveal.js as a HTML-based presentation framework. I actually really do like PowerPoint, but I do so many demos on the web. I like having my slide deck on the web as well. But this is an example of the PDF embedded in my HTML site. This should look very similar to the typical Acrobat experience. So I can, use my mouse wheel. I can scroll down and see the PDF. I have annotation tools. So like, I love that kitty. So I'm just gonna make a marker to it because it's so cool. I'm even gonna add a comment. This cat rocks. And as I'm typing that, I'm like holding my arm up so my cat won't bite me. So this cat rocks. The one on my lap, not so much. But anyway, again, very much like an Acrobat type experience. I can do zoom in. I can do search. Again, and all of this is within my HTML website, which in this case is just my slide deck. And when I'm done with this, or if I just want a copy of it, I can absolutely just click save and it downloads to my system. And by the way, it does download. Actually, let me open this. I'll show you. Yeah, of course, it opened up with my browser, but it does actually save with the annotations in there. So all the things I did with the drawing and all that, that was preserved in my copy. So how this is done, how you actually use this. So step one, you get a key. So you do that by going to your website, you click on the Get Free Credentials, a nice blue button there, and we will walk you through doing that. By the way, we also have a developer-ish console where later on, if you need to create more keys and work with your projects, that is where you would go. But when you're first signing up, when you're first testing it, you can literally just click there and we walk you through creating the credentials. Keys are host specific, and that is super important. So if you're working on local hosts, you will need a key for local hosts. If you're sending your final result to RaymondCamden.com, then you will need a key for RaymondCamden.com. I can say that when you specify your host, you can do just RaymondCamden.com, and that means www. and dev. etc. will work. So if I'm running a local copy of RaymondCamden.com, I can set up my host file such that dev.raymondcamden.com goes to localhost and then use the same key in dev and production, or I can use environment variables. But just keep in mind that you do want to think about where you'll be testing and where you'll be using this in production. So you then load the library, and that is you copying and pasting this script tag into your code. And that is the URL that points to our library to make all this fun stuff work. Once you've done that, before you can start using the PDF embed, you do have to wait for the library to load. If you look at our documentation, and this is the example we use, it's a simple event listener listening for that particular event name. I won't read it off screen because it's a little bit long. And basically, when that event fires, you then do your stuff. The issue that I ran into this, and this is perfectly valid code, but the first time I tested this, I was working with Vue.js, and what was happening is that the library was loading before Vue was ready, and it wasn't always consistent for me. And what I discovered is that you can also check for a particular window variable, in this case, Adobe DC, and basically write code like you see on screen here, where I'm basically saying, if the variable is created, that means the library is loaded and ready to go. Go ahead and run my code to render the PDF. Otherwise, add the event listener, and that's going to also fire the same function when done. I almost always recommend using code that looks like this. So once you've done that, you then initialize and load the PDF. And what does that look like? Well, it's basically two steps. You create an Adobe DC View object. You pass in your key, and you tell it the ID value of a div somewhere on your page. So if you want to control the height and width of the div, the layout, right column, left column, whatever, you do that in vanilla CSS like you would usually. But the library does need to know what that particular div is. After that, you then run the preview file method on that particular object. You tell it the location of your PDF, and you tell it the file name. And the file name is really just used to kind of show the title on screen. By the way, you don't have to use a URL. You can also use a file promise or a file reader promise. So if you wanted to support something where you want a user to upload a PDF and you want to render that on screen, you can support that version as well. So as an example of this, I'll show you in the browser. This is me using all of my design skills, picking that lovely green, but I put some HTML on top, I put some HTML bottom, and I put the PDF in the middle. I could absolutely make that PDF a bit bigger. I can make that look a bit nicer. Look a bit nicer. That is on me, not Adobe. But if we look at that particular code, it's pretty much exactly what I showed before. Let me scroll this over a little bit. You can see I load the library. You can see how I'm using that code that I suggested, where I check for window.adobe DC or the particular event to fire. And then I have my code, and this is pretty much exactly what you just saw. And if I wanted to make that bigger, like the PDF display, I go into my CSS and do whatever I want. So that is like the vanilla, super basic version of it. You can absolutely change things up a bit. So for example, you can change it so that you see one page at a time only. You can have it where it's one page but allows you to scroll, and that's the default view. We call that full window. We have an inline mode, which will take the PDF and stretch it all the way out. Don't do that on a 100-page PDF unless you want a really, really long HTML page. And then we also have a lightbox, which will do a modal window. And all of this is done via just modifying your code a little bit. All I've done here is change preview file to pass a second argument where I pass some options in there. In this case, it's the embed mode, and I'm specifying what I want. So this will make a bit more sense if we look at it. So again, this is the default called full window, and it's not the entire browser window, but I like to think of it as fully in the div that contains it. See, there's kind of like a streaming PDF view here where I can just scroll and scroll and scroll. If you compare that to size container, and you can see it's a little bit smaller. And again, I could make this div shaped a bit nicer, but it's one page at a time. and I can click and go back and forth to different pages. Inline is the one where I said it stretches out, and you can see it did that as it loaded. So now my web page is really, really, really long. And then Lightbox will be the modal version, and you can see it popped up like that. And I have, maybe a little bit hard to see it, but I have a little close here that gets rid of the modal window. I'm not a fan of this particular version of my demo, but I want to show you this code pin I have instead. This is a bit more realistic, where I'm not showing it on page load. Instead, I have a button that will render the PDF. And if I make this a bit bigger, I can click, and there you go. I don't think I have, I was going to say, I definitely have this on my code pin. My slide deck, the entire thing is up on a GitHub repository. I think I actually forgot to include that link in the slide deck. But when I'm at my very end, I'll pop over on GitHub and show you that URL if you want to grab the slides and then grab the demos. So that is just customizing the view. We also allow for a lot more. You could do things like modify what's going to show in the UI, doing things like turning off print and save. And to be clear, you're still rendering a PDF in the browser. Somebody could still take a screenshot. But if you want to at least kind of stop partially people doing that, you can turn off and on those buttons. If you don't want people adding annotations in the comments, you can also do that. And we have a lot of docs that go really deep into all the things that you can modify. I have an example in code here where basically all I'm doing is turning off download, turning off print, turning off annotation, and turning off the left-hand panel. By the way, that's where you would normally see things like pages and stuff like that. But it's a real kind of simple modification to the JavaScript. If we look at an example of that, in this one, I have disabled print and save. So when I click on the three-dotted menu, that is gone. I no longer have a left-hand navigation. And I mentioned the code was easy. Let me actually show it. This is pretty much the exact same thing you saw on the slide. But if for some reason I wanted to allow print but not allow download, I can actually just get rid of this because by default it's on. But I could also make it more explicit and set that value to true. And I will pause to take a sip of water. Very dramatic pause. So that is how you would modify the UI. So again, the idea behind this really is letting you control the experience versus kind of the browser default. I'm going to take over and just use my own particular viewer. It's also going to be more consistent. So Edge's PDF viewer versus Chrome's PDF viewer versus Firefox, they all have their own kind of spin on how to do things. This will give you something consistent across all the browsers. We also provide a lot of detail into the document itself. So for example, if you want to get the metadata about the PDF document, now, normally what your PDFs are, but if you are allowing people to upload, we can tell you things like how many pages, etc. You also have APIs in there to change to a different page, change to a particular zoom. And what I think is interesting is you can also even do your own searches. So search is part of the experience, but if you wanted to do your own search, you can do that. And where I have found that interesting, and I have a demo of this on my blog, is I built a search engine for my PDFs in my Jamstack site. So I can search for food and it can find it in PDFs. When I click to take you to that document, I open up a web page with the PDF embed, I show the document, and I use the search API to actually go into the PDF for the term that you entered and highlight that for you. And again, that is what these APIs allow you to do. If you want to do more work with annotations, like if you want to create some, if you want to save some, we have an API for that. We also have built-in integration with Adobe Analytics, but we have full event support. So if you don't want to use Adobe Analytics, if you want to use the analytics from a particular search engine company out in California, You could use any analytics engine you want because we have the ability for you to listen in to those particular events. So, for example, one of the demos I built was the was something that listened for a page view event, and I noticed when you had viewed all the pages in a PDF. So you know those legal terms that nobody reads, but they still make you scroll to the bottom. You can do the same thing with a PDF document. You can force the user to go through all the pages, pretend that they're reading, and then notice when they viewed every single page on there. So again, this is pretty deep. We have an online sandbox, which has a nicer PDF, although no cats, really kind of sad. But it shows you the different views and allows you to customize things like, I want to see what it looks like when I turn off that left-hand panel, turn off page controls, etc. And what's cool is that you can also get the code directly from here. I'll also point out that you can actually, let me go back to customize. You can actually upload your own PDF if you want to see it in here, and then compare the different UI/UX options. So this is online, linked to from my slide deck. And again, I will be sharing that location when I'm all done. So that is all of the front end stuff. And because this is a pretty particular place to kind of switch, I am looking over at my MacBook Pro here, looking at the stream and just seeing if I see any questions yet. I'm doing it a little bit quick, and I don't believe I see any questions yet. But again, if you think of something later, if you think of something that you just want to know, absolutely feel free to reach out to me. I am here for you. And again, my GitHub repository will have all of these particular examples that I just showed, along with the slide deck. All right, another dramatic pause. By the way, I did kick the cat off my lap. I got tired of her biting me. So let's go to Serverland. Our back-end integration stuff, I guess that's the official marketing term, our stuff kind of falls into three core services. We have SDKs for Java, Node, .NET, and Python. I will say the Python SDK only supports one of the services so far, but we do have REST APIs. For those of you in the audience who are only here because I was a Cold Fusion person, you can use the Java SDK with Cold Fusion. There's a bit of an issue in terms of getting the jars in there exactly right. Come see me after, come see my recorded Cold Fusion presentation from a couple of weeks ago where I talk about it. You can make it work. You just have to do a little bit of setup. And again, worst comes to worst, you switch to our REST APIs and go from there. I will say I am a Node.js person, so I will be using Node for everything. I absolutely love Python. It is the only language that has gotten me excited for like a decade or so. I have done a little bit with our Python SDKs. I'm still learning Python. By the way, hopefully this will show up on screen. This book, I know I'm going off topic here, I apologize, but this book, the Python Crash Course by Eric Math, is really darn good, and I recommend it. You can see I'm working my way slowly through it as time allows, and as we all know, times are a bit stressful right now. So as I said in the beginning, this is our commercial service. It is not free. However, you can get a free trial. That free trial gives you 1,000 calls over a 6-month period. Now, I don't know about you, but I cannot tell you how many times I have signed up for a service because I'm totally going to learn it. I'm totally going to, carve out some time to play with it and maybe write a blog post on it. And then like a month later, I'm like, oh my God, what happened? Oh, my trial expired. So you do have a nice long period of time to work with this. If for some reason you sign up and the 6 months expires, you could sign up again with another account or reach out to me and I can help you potentially reset things. But again, you can absolutely do everything I'm showing here today. You can try it out, you can play with it, and you have a good amount of time to do that. You will need to get your credentials. And again, our website will walk you through doing that. This will not be host-based, but it will be two things. It'll be a JSON file with a couple keys in there, and it will be a private.key key file that you will use for your credentials. And I'll be showing an example of this. We have multiple different ways for you to set things up. So you have options, which is always a good thing. So in terms of our three backend things, we have PDF services. And I put that in quotes because everything I'm talking about today is a PDF service. But the PDF services thing is kind of our pocket knife, every type of tool imaginable type thing. So that's where you slice and dice and manipulate PDFs. And it's a bit different from our other two services, document generation and PDF extract. Yes, that's all different types of services, but this is how we organize things, and it kind of makes sense. So PDF services, this was known as PDF tools up till about 2 months or so ago. And by the way, am I the only one who, since this pandemic has started, just time is so weird? Like something could have been like a year ago and it feels like last week, and then vice versa. So up until some point, this was officially known as PDF tools. So if you're Googling and see PDF tools in the answer, just know that that was the old marketing name for what's PDF services now. This is, like I said, kind of the everything related to doing stuff with PDFs. And what I mean by stuff, marketing loves me. Creating PDFs, so you can use Office documents, you could use static and dynamic HTML, but you could take this and you could create a PDF from it. You could take a PDF and go to multiple Office documents or text or images. And by the way, going from a PDF to images, again, on my blog, if you're a Jamstack person, I have an example of creating image thumbnails from PDF documents for you to render in your Jamstack site. You can combine PDFs. Oh no, the cat is back. You could take multiple PDFs and combine them in one. This is really useful for when you're creating PDFs, let's say like from a Word document, and you need to add some kind of boilerplate legalese or to the beginning or something to the end. You can OCR a PDF, and by that, what I mean is if you've ever seen a PDF that's just a scanned image, you can actually turn that into text. And if you've not seen that before, you will in about 5 or so minutes. You can then take a PDF and you can compress it, make it smaller, etc. So just make it more efficient. You could add a password or lock permissions like print. You could insert, move, shift around. I mean, really, this, like anything that you could imagine kind of doing with a PDF, this would all fall into the PDF services bucket, including things like splitting a PDF. Ow, cat, I love you, but you're just being grouchy. All right, I know in most of these virtual presentations, it's kids who are causing a ruckus in the background. This time it's my cat. I'll tell you, she's mad because she wants to go outside and I just don't want her outside. All right, so I promise no more cat interruptions. So the general flow of how you work with this, and this will be the same whether you're Java, JavaScript, etc., is that you will make a credentials object. You will create what's called an execution context specific to your operation. So we have an execution context for doing OCR, for adding a password, etc. You will set your input. So if I'm converting from Word to PDF, that's where you set your input. You will execute and you will save your result. All of that in real code looks a bit like this. And this is pretty much everything. I don't have the Node.js requires, but you can see on top where I do my credentials. I will show you an example of what that JSON looks like. Not my credentials.json. So it will be 5 keys, of which one of them, private key file, this is a path to your actual private key. This is what it looks like. And I want to point out, let me go back to the code. This block, if you don't want to use 2 files for your credentials, you're worried about checking it into source control and stuff like that, we actually have API methods for set this key, set that key, set the third key, etc., which means that you can use environment variables to handle all of those secure values. So I create my execution context. In this case, I'm doing OCR. I'm going to be pointing to a local file. I'm going to execute. And when I'm done, I'm going to take that result and I'm going to save it as a file. I could also use it with a Node.js buffer instead, but typically I want to take the result and just save it out. So I'm going to show you an example of this in OCR Example.js. And this is pretty much the same thing I showed on screen. I did make it fancy and used hipster JavaScript with async, await, and all that. You do not have to write your code like this. But basically, I say, I have an input file path, a PDF that needs OCR. And you know what? Let me actually show you that in Acrobat. PDFs. Nope, I didn't put it in there. I put it in demos, services, PDF that needs OCR. And it went to the wrong monitor. So this is that PDF. And you see it's definitely readable, but if you try to copy any text, you can't because the whole darn thing is a image. And if I try to find something like, oh, security, which I know is there, it can't find it. Now, Acrobat does actually ask me to add OCR. I want to tell it no, to leave alone. Let's close it. So if I want to make that readable, I could then use the code that I kind of showed on screen where I make credentials, I create my execution context, and then I simply run the result. And in this case, I am returning it and saving it to output. And if we run this, go into demos. By the way, to use our services, you have to have a cat background in your terminal. That's part of the license agreement. You can quote me on that. All right, Node OCR Example.js. So it's going to take my PDF, it's going to send it to our API, it's going to do the OCR on it, and when it's done, it's going to return it back to me. Normally, this runs a little bit quicker. I made a heck of a lot quicker. I am having some slower internet today, but that's okay. It is done. And if we look at PDF that is now OCR, open this one up, now we actually have an OCR document. So, and if I actually search for security, it finds it. So kind of a trivial example, but also really darn useful, right? Because if you're, especially if you're letting people upload documents, you know, they're PDFs, you don't know what state it's going to be in. So I think this is really handy, pretty darn simple to use. I have also taken an example and built one in Pipedream. If you follow me on my blog, you know that I am a big fan of Pipedream. It's a workflow service where you can essentially drag and drop almost different things together. So for example, I have a step that says new file in Dropbox. I literally just clicked a few buttons to add integration with my Dropbox account. I then wrote a little bit of code, which is pretty similar to what I had before using our API. And then the end result is that it takes that PDF, it adds a password to it. In this case, I'm pretty sure I hard-coded it somewhere. It goes, Iron Man sucks or something. But it takes it and then it saves it right back into Dropbox. So all of our APIs, all that stuff, it works everywhere. Microsoft Power Automate, we have great support there baked in. You could do it in Amazon Lambda. I just wrote a blog post on doing that. And again, Pipedream is one of my favorite services, and it was not difficult to build it here as well. And again, I linked to this from my presentation. So if you want to look at this example, you can. Oh yeah, there's a password right there. Iron Man sucks. So more that you can do with PDF services. Again, don't forget that it used to be PDF tools. I talked about how the credential information can be passed in via methods. And actually, if you go back to the pipe dream one, you can see I read all of my credentials, excuse me, from environment variables, dramatic pause for water. And this is an example of creating that credentials, not using files, but instead just passing in each value via an API call. So you have that. You can also chain stuff together. So for example, I want to do a CR, I want to append the document to your PDF, and then I want to password protect it. You can absolutely chain multiple different things together. And before we move on, that is PDF services. I'm not going to show you anything more on that because every other operation pretty much follows the exact same thing. It's pretty much credentials, what's your execution object, what's your input, tell me to run, and then save the output. So instead, I want to move on now to document generation. This is this really excites me for some reason, even though it involves Microsoft Word. What's exciting about Microsoft Word? Well, I'm going to show you what's exciting about it. You could take Microsoft Word and use it as a document, use it as a template. And then you could take your data, and that data could be flat files. It could be a database. It could be another API call that you make. We don't care. You take whatever data you want. You take a Word document as a template, and then we output a PDF. So for example, imagine you had a billing system, and every month you wanted to send bills to all your customers who owe you money. You can design a billing invoice in Microsoft Word, then write some code to hit your database, pass that data and your Word document to our API, and we'll give you custom PDFs. So you take a Microsoft Word document, you change some of the text to tokens, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. You then pass it to our API, and then you get a PDF out. So let me actually show an example first before I go any further. So I have a Microsoft Word document, and this is where your client may go in and they may do their own they may do their own formatting and stuff like that. I know this is tiny. Let me make it bigger like that, and we will make this a proper title like this and say, I want to make you back normal-ish. I want to hire you for a job and pay you X dollars a week. So you can imagine this as being a very boring, but very quick to read, job offer that you want to email to a candidate. So if I want to start making this dynamic, we have a Microsoft Word add-in that adds UI to Microsoft Word. I clicked it right there. And what I can do is a couple different things. If my developer has some sample data for me, they can give me that data as a JSON file that I could upload. But if that data is not ready yet, I can actually, all within Word, start kind of building things from here and say, I know that I'm going to have a name for the person I want to hire, and it's just a string. And I will click create another. I want to hire them for a job. That's also going to be a string. And then I want to offer them a salary. That will be a number. And all I've done is basically told Word what kind of dynamic data I'm going to have and made 3 tags for me. I can then go in here and say, you know what, this is actually supposed to be a tag, supposed to be a name. And that job is also supposed to be a tag, as is your salary. All right. Now at this point, I can save this Word document. I can give it to my developer. They write code that looks very much like what I just showed you. You know, it's a PDF services SDK. It is a credentials object. In this case, the operation is going to be document generation. So I would tell it where my Word document is, and I would give it my data, and then I would get a PDF out. But what I really, really like is that you can actually do a lot of testing directly within Word. So I'm going to go ahead and click Generate Document. I'm going to sign in to Adobe, and you all get to see my password. No, I'm just kidding. My password is Iron Man Sucks. My password is not that. Whew, I am so happy I remembered that. I thought for sure I was going to be messing up. So I've signed in, and what it did is it took my tags and it made some sample data. I can go in here, and if I feel comfortable enough, I could say my name is Raymond de Camden. My job is going to be cat wrangler, and my salary is going to be $9,000 a week. That's pretty darn good. Click continue, and what's happening now is that Microsoft Word is actually using our APIs. I didn't have to set up my own particular keys. It was just ready to go. I click view document, and I could actually see my output. I could even save this if I wanted to. And if for some reason I wanted to get fancy and say, and by the way, don't let me be fancy. I am not good when it comes to fancy, but I like that green better, and I want to change the text a little bit. I can do that, and I could click continue, and let's say generate document again. It does reset the values, but I'm okay. I'm more concerned with how this looks. So I will generate the PDF again. Let it do its magic, and view the document. And I love that. You know, I love the fact that this is approachable to non-developers. If I'm working with a client, they could just take Word and they could just go crazy, right? They can make it look as pretty as they want, add images and stuff like that. They could work on this while I work on the code. And honestly, my code doesn't change. Like once I know where to get this data, I'm done. And we could continue to iterate on Microsoft Word forever, and I don't have to worry about changing code. Now, by the way, we do a lot more than just simple value replacement. So for example, I can even do conditionals. And I'm doing this all via Microsoft Word. So I can say, hey, if the salary is greater than 500, I want to write something else. And that is, you must be awesome. And I'm going to talk a bit more about this code in a second. But I can now test this, generate document. I'll keep salary at 0, just so we can see it not show up. Again, this is integrating with the API. It's generating the document. I click view, and okay, I can see it didn't show up, which is what I want. I go back, continue, generate document again, and I make all the money. I make all the money. I could buy all my cat toys. Hit continue. And hit view document, and there's that paragraph. Along with conditions, we can also do looping. So I mentioned an invoice earlier on. So if you have line items for why you're billing them, you can actually create tables that dynamically grow based on the data that you're sending. So you can do bulleted lists, you can do tables, you can also do dynamic images. It gets really kind of deep and complex. And I love using Microsoft Word as a template language. It just excites me. In case you're curious, the template language is based on JSONata. And if you're comfortable, obviously, you could type all those codes that I kind of auto-inserted via the nice UI panel. If you want to type that by hand, you can. There are things in here like number formatting. So for example, I could add commas. I can do, I could strip off after a certain number of decimal places. JSONata is pretty darn complex, and we support a very large subset of that. So I mentioned, looping, conditionals, and formatting functions. I have blog posts talking about this if you want to see more about that. And to be clear, your data means anything and everything. So if you want to work with a database, if you have a flat file that you could read in via your code, anything at all. You can also modify the data before you send it to the API. So for example, you have data that comes from a database and an API, you want to merge them together and do blah, blah, blah to them, that's fine. Just once you're done, once you've made your data the way you want it, you give it to us, you give us your Word document, we give you a beautiful PDF. So I did show that demo. We have a bunch of examples on our site, and they all look a lot nicer than what I did, but definitely more business oriented. You can see sales agreements, invoices, not a cat to be found, all serious business time type stuff. We also have an online tool that basically lets you take these and put your own data and see how they look. It's like an online sandbox that you can use to play with it. So that's document generation. Like I said, I find it incredibly exciting. Maybe I'm a nerd. There's a small chance of that. I want to talk about the last API, and that is the Extract API. This is powered by AI and machine learning, because everything now is, and Adobe Sensei. And it returns incredibly detailed data about your PDF documents. Like I've known for a long time that PDFs were pretty complex. I am learning just how darn complex they can be. The Extract API provides every single bit of data imaginable about that. It can also return images from your PDF. So if you just want to suck out those images and do stuff with them, you can. And it can even take tables and give you pictures or CSV or Excel files from them. So if you look at our blog, I wrote up a demo a couple of weeks ago where I imagined a scientific journal that has PDFs of their old journals. And in those PDFs are tables of data. I actually built a demo where I used Extract to get the tables out as CSV. I parsed that data, and then I ran reports on like 20 years of PDFs of data to give you an aggregate view of the information contained within all those documents. And Extract is how I did it. So the code is going to look pretty similar to everything else. This is all using one SDK, so it's no big surprise there. But all I'm doing is I'm loading our SDK, and then I'm creating my credentials. And again, execution context. It does get a bit complex. Let me close this. When you begin telling it what to extract. So for example, I'm asking for text, I'm asking for tables, and I'm telling it to extract those as pictures and tables of data. I'm asking for a CSV format. So this part's a bit complex, but pretty much everything else is the exact same. I'm pointing to a local PDF, I'm executing, and I'm saving it. Because of the level of data return, it is going to be a zip file of everything in there. If I run this, we'll see it do what it does, and it looks pretty similar to the other operations. Good chance we may take a sip of water. And it's done. It's saved to an output.zip. What that looks like, and I've already extracted it, and I apologize, this is a little bit small. Let me change to large icons, extra large icons. So you get a JSON file. I'm going to show that in a moment. And then I had asked for the tables to be exported, and I asked for both pictures and CSV files. So I have a picture of my table, and let me bring it over here. And I also have a CSV version of that. And you can see it's just the same data. Now, what that JSON looks like, I told you it was complex. It is quite complex. This is one PDF, and it is, I will say, the JSON result is going to be all munged together, no line breaks. I went ahead and ran a format in Visual Studio Code on this, but it is, I mean, shoot, we're not even halfway there. Let me keep going. It is 17,000 lines of data, and it includes everything possible imagined. So for example, the text for planetary science, decadal, I know I said that wrong, survey, it gives you a path to it. It gives you the bounds for it. It gives you the font family, the font size. And this, for every bit of text in this PDF, you have all of this data. One thing I will point out, we publish a JSON schema format for this particular document. In Visual Studio Code, I have set that up. I've linked to that particular schema. That then allows me to go in here and say, oh, what does bounds mean? And I get the help information for it. And for example, what's an alt family name? What's the alternate font family name? There you go. But if you do use Visual Studio Code, or if you use any editor that supports a JSON schema, you can get in-editor support for working with this. To be honest, I've not done a lot with this data. What I have done is written code that grabs all of the text elements and gives me one kind of ginormous glob of text for a PDF. That's how I built my Jamstack PDF search blog demo that I mentioned earlier. So that was possibly quite a lot. I will say we have great documentation. I will just kind of show you what it looks like. There you go, nice and simple. It's docs. I do think, especially like under PDF services, you have all those operations: OCR, compress, protect, remove protection, etc. And nice examples of Java, Net, Node, and REST API, so you can kind of see how they all work together. We do have a support forum, but we also have Stack Overflow tags. So I know some people like Stack Overflow, some people don't. We have people who monitor the forums all the time. So post to wherever you feel comfortable, and we definitely monitor Stack Overflow as well. We have a blog. It's up on Medium. You can see my most recent entry on Lambda. It's super exciting. You should definitely read it. By the way, I've been doing serverless for years, and this was the first time I used Lambda. So that was an experience. It was kind of fun. And we also have a monthly YouTube show where we talk about different topics, or we have people come on who are using our technology. It is currently called Paper Cuts. We are going through a rebranding because yay, brand. So the name will change. The link will still work. And actually, we just had oh, the cat is back again. We just had a session yesterday where I talked about tips and tricks of working with our services, stuff that I covered a little bit today, but I went into deeper detail. So if you are interested after this presentation, definitely see the last YouTube show we did for some things to think about when you get started. Whew. All right. So I am going to look to see if I have any questions. Of course, now the cat is literally between me and my MacBook where I have the thing up.
Hey, Ray, do not worry. I will get the questions for you.
Thank you.
But don't worry. There was a lot of sympathy for you and also for the cat, though. So the audience was a little bit divided. Both of you had some good support from the audience there. And we're all thinking that you must be very tasty because the cat wants to eat you instead of their food. Either that or you're just not feeding them enough. So you be the judge of that.
If you can see her belly sway, she's definitely getting fed enough.
Yeah. I think we're going to know the answer then. So my question to you is, you highlighted the documentation at the end of your presentation. Is the documentation available in PDF format?
No, it's not, actually.
What?
It is not. You know what? No one's ever mentioned that before. So I can absolutely see needing a downloadable version of our docs. Imagine in the future where you're on an airplane ride to a conference and you want to learn something. It's international. Imagine that, right? I could absolutely see needing a downloaded version. So I will raise that.
Yeah, no, you lost me. Imagine you're on an airplane, because I can't imagine that right now. No, I forgot what it's like. Cool. Okay, so for those of you who wanted, I will read out the questions shortly, but for those of you who wanted Raymond's slides, you can find them on GitHub. His handle is CF Jedi Master.
Yeah. I'm going there right now. It should be, if I could type live, it's all fear of this cat next to me.
Fear is real. I did post the link in the chat earlier, so if you folks want to scroll all the way up, you can, but also have a look at what Ray is showing us right now. So yes, CF Jedi Master, and it was Document Services Prezzo. Yes. So go and have a look at that. So questions then. Tristan wants to know, is there a non-continuous mode to read a PDF? And by that they mean, can you show page 5 with, let's say, page 100 side by side, for example?
Yes, and I'm going to move the cat. There we go. All right. So if we go back to demos, embed test 2, so size container. And so again, what you're seeing on screen here is not, I did not size this nicely. So again, blame me, not the embed. But that is the mode that allows you to show one page at a time. You can, when the thing loads, say, go to page 3. Now, specifically, if you want to show page 3 and page 100, you can put multiple embeds on one web page. You could do that. You could not, inside one embed here, show both pages together like that. So we have a solution if you're willing to put 2 embeds in there.
Cool. Okay. Sounds like a good workaround. Brilliant. Are you cool to stay on for a couple of minutes after the hour, or do you have to rush off?
I am totally cool.
Okay, brilliant. I will get through the rest of these questions. Thank you for that. So the next question is from Kiran, who wants to know, can you implement PDF signatures?
You can. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so if you're using this solution to embed PDFs or use PDFs on your web pages, can you use the PDF signature feature?
Right now, no. You can link to it. I have to be honest, I'm learning Sign right now. Hopefully my coworkers aren't getting mad at me. I've just recently learned Sign. Document generation, absolutely, and can use Sign. So you can put the signing fields in there. And then Sign has its own API as well. I did not cover in this presentation. So you can do it like that. Sign does let you embed on a web page, but it's a different technology. But you can have a similar type solution, just not with this particular embed, if that makes sense, hopefully.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. So Donya would like to know, can you link to a specific page in the PDF from another page on the website? For example, you've got a button on your home page. It goes to the About page, which has got the embedded PDF on it, and goes straight to the 5th page in the PDF.
Yes. Short answer is absolutely yes. So I mentioned how we have all kind of APIs and crap that lets you go into the PDF. One of those is go to page X. So you can. I have a demo of that on my blog where it's not, click here for page 5, but it's a search example where I searched for foo. I have a list of results. And when you click through to the result, I didn't want to just show the PDF that has your word. I wanted to show the PDF and scroll down to where you were. And technically, that's a different API. It's a search API, because I'll go to the word and it'll highlight it for you. But if you wanted to just go to page 5, then yes.
Cool. Okay. And your blog again is at raymondcamden.com. Yes. Do you remember what that blog post was called by any chance?
No, but because I'm sharing screen here, I will give you an easy way to it. This was all Jamstack stuff. So if you go into my tags, just scroll down past the ads and go into like 11D or go into static sites, you will find them. I know it's under 11D. Yeah, using PDFs with the Jamstack, I have a couple of them. Yeah, right there. Using PDFs, search, text extraction. Yeah, that blog post uses PDF Embed, uses the Extract API as well. Pretty sure it uses Lunar JS in the front end, but you can use whatever you want.
Cool. Yeah, and also your website has got a handy search function. So if anyone wants to go on there and just use the search function, type in PDF Jamstack, and you will be able to find all of those. Or like Raymond said, use the tags as well. Such a well-organized website, but I guess with this over 6,000 posts, it needs to be.
Some of them are even good posts.
So all of them are good. All of them are good. I've read them all.
Thank you.
So the last question then is about JSON. So Shruti would like to know how you add the JSON schema in VS Code.
Yep. I'll show you the way I did it. In the project settings, which is VS Code, there's a settings JSON file. I copied and pasted from their docs. So basically a file schema to match, and this could be dynamic. But in my case, it's always just called structured.json. And the URL can either be a remote URL. You can also download the schema and put it in your file system. In the docs that I saw like 2 hours ago, they mentioned that you could do it on a per project basis. You could do it on a per user basis, so for all of VS Code. And you could even do something like this, and this is not the exact right syntax, but you add something like schema, like so, and it will make it supported. And that's not the exact right way, but there you go.
Cool, brilliant. Well, thanks once again, Ray. You've received so many brilliant comments in the chat. You need to go back and scroll back through. There were quite a lot of cat puns. Every time you took some water, it was like pause for water. So yeah, all of the good cat puns. And also thanks to Joel Garachi, who's posted a code pen about how they link to a specific page based on a URL link. So thank you, Joel, for sharing that resource with us.
Cool guy.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks once again, Ray, for coming and helping us to celebrate 4 years here at CFE.dev. Please don't leave it another few years to come back again to speak to us. But yeah, thanks again for your time.
You are most welcome. Thank you all for having me.
No worries. And thanks once again, everybody, for joining us today. Please do join us again in September. We're back on the 2nd and 4th Thursday of every month for our free meetups. Until I see you again, look after yourselves and take care. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.